Welcome to the Warehouse. Have you ever heard a sermon and thought, how in the world did he discover that? Or where did he get that idea? Every week at Cornerstone Church, two teams dig into the biblical text that'll be taught during our weekend services. We spend hours talking about the text, the context, the culture of the time, you name it. But you can't stuff all that into a 30-minute message. That's where we come in. We're going to show you the stuff in the warehouse that didn't make it to the stage. Hi. Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Nice. Hey, what's your favorite soup in this blazing heat?
Oh, does it have to be in this blazing heat?
Oh, no, the question is posed in this blazing heat. But what's your favorite soup?
Okay. As we're in the middle of blazing
Summer.
heat,
Yeah.
what is your favorite soup?
Yes.
Mine would be like a vegetable beef. Yeah.
In that order? Vegetable beef?
No, a vegetable beef soup, because you can't just have vegetable soup. You have to have the beef in there.
I would take
and not
just
like
the beef.
Yeah, beef soup sounds
Leave out
much better than...
vegetables.
Yeah.
No. And not with hamburger. Like you have to have a good stew meat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want a steak soup?
Heck
That's got
yeah.
a couple green beans?
No.
Couple
You
onions?
have to have like the new potatoes,
Oh,
like
you're
all
going...
the things
Okay.
with tomato-ness.
Mhm.
Okay, tomato base.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your
I can
turn.
get there. I can get there.
One of you.
Yeah, something very far from that.
Ooh.
Oh.
Whoa.
Far.
What is as far as you can get from vegetable beef?
I generally don't like. I do not prefer most tomato base,
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's like a beef base?
or like a cream based. So like a zuppa toscana,
Zuppa Toscana.
Is that the
Yeah.
one with the like sausage and
potatoes,
and
and some kale.
spinach?
Or
Okay.
spinach. Yeah. My wife makes a good one. Jason Thrash makes a really good one.
Ooh.
I really love sausage in a soup too. Like I would always like rather than like my wife is an excellent cook, very very good cook. I think we've talked about on the show before that she often does not put a lot of seasoning in things.
We have talked
and does
about
not like spice. So like she would just put ground beef in things, and she just loves the taste of ground beef like plain with nothing.
Wow.
And so I always prefer sausage. So I would say probably zuppa toscana.
A Zuppa Toscana. That's the best soup to say.
It is.
Yeah. I'm going to go another base. I enjoy soups everywhere. Like I'll always ask what the soup of the day is. And even in it, if it's hot, I'm still drawn to the soup. But the one that takes the cake is clam chowder.
Oh,
I do
that's
like
a good
clam
one.
chowder.
I like a good lobster bisque
Ooh, a
too.
good bisque.
Yeah. That one's a good one. Or the chowder, the corn chowder one from Panera. That one's pretty good. A little spicy though.
Yes.
It's hard to beat a chowder.
You guys like good spice, don't you though?
I like spice.
I don't. Oh yeah,
Speaking
your
of
wife,
good
she
spice.
likes spicy. And you like spicy.
Yeah.
We could
She
get
is
there.
spicy.
Ah.
Speaking of good spice, we're going to be in Matthew 7 through 11, week number 10 in this, I think, 13 week.
Whew.
We're going to have
That's a
3
big
after
one.
this one. Pretty exciting. Week 10,
Nope. We have 2 more.
just 2. Apologies.
Yeah, you need to apologize for that.
That's my bad.
I had no idea. I left mine sermon series week, and then I just left the number mark there because I had no idea where we were at.
Yeah, I've been there. So, again, Matthew 7 through 11. One of those, another one of those passages where if we've grown up in church, we've heard it dozens and dozens and maybe hundreds of times and probably have some definite misconceptions about it, more than likely.
We'll see.
But, Stephanie, what was your big idea this week?
Mine was when we persistently ask our Father, He desires to bless us from His kingdom.
Not bad. I said, ours is a good Father who answers when we call.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't often start a sentence with ours.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I thought he said hours, like an
H?
hour hand. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm. Hours? No, I did not use an hour.
Hard
hand.
H. Mine was a right view of God will transform your prayer life.
Ooh.
So let's talk about that. 5 verses today. I figure we need to see if there's any context we need to bring out again. It's one of these, again, we're in week 10 and we've been camping in the same place. And so we've been struggling a little bit trying to find more, I guess we've been reviewing more context than we've been bringing up new stuff lately. Anything we need to highlight from this?
I didn't have anything. How about you, Nathan?
I think just like this is one of, depending on how you think about like the anxiety passage, like this is maybe the third time that Jesus has like specifically taught about, like third separate time that Jesus has talked about prayer in the Sermon on the Mount. I guess the anxiety passage is not explicitly about prayer, but you have like especially that significant teaching in the Lord's Prayer is obviously like several facets of prayer. And then, so anyway, it's been a recurring theme throughout. So if you want to get a full-fledged picture of like what Jesus is trying to teach about prayer, you should probably read all of them together, not just one.
Oh, that's good.
That is a good note to make.
That's really good. And also, it might be, we talked about this more this afternoon in the communicator meeting, that this is after Jesus has told people to be salt and light, after he's told them that if you have hate in your heart, you've committed murder. If you've had lust in your heart, you've committed adultery. And he's going through this list of what people in his kingdom are going to look like. And here at the end, towards the end of the Sermon on the Mount, there's a really good chance people are going to be like, how in the world do we do this? And so Jesus comes and lands, starting with verse 7 here, and tells us what to be doing with our prayer life. I thought that was an interesting pin to put on it.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. All I can think of is like the legal term for it. There's a debate term for like whenever you just pile up like argument after argument after argument to make a point. Like whenever it's like in a legal term, it would be like a preponderance of evidence, right? It's like, it's just insurmountable, like the number of things that have piled up. And
beyond a reasonable doubt is more than a preponderance of the evidence is like 51%. More likely than not.
Oh, okay. I would have used preponderance to mean like a whole lot.
Because it's a cool
sounding word. So it's just a majority?
Yeah. The burden of proof. The party with the burden convinces the fact finder that there's a greater than 50% chance that the claim is true.
Huh. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I definitely had a wrong definition of preponderance in my mind.
So you're talking beyond a reasonable doubt. Like there's some weight on them.
Yeah. So I guess what I was after is like this feeling that they've just been, that they're left at this point, not like uplifted and encouraged, like, oh, cool. Yeah, great. I love the kingdom of God. But like a feeling of like, oh gosh, like thing after thing after thing has been laid on top of me. And like, I realized that I don't measure up to that.
Yeah. They've been inundated with all of these things that I just can't do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good.
And so here we go into verses 7 through 11, unless you have something else.
I don't.
I think we'll just knock them all out and then talk about what we want to talk about.
Yep.
Sounds good. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. Or which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? Powerful. What do you guys have?
So verse 7, I mean, just obvious like structural note would be that we've got 3 imperatives there. So ask, seek, and knock. And then there's like you do this and you will receive this. So you've got ask and it will be given to you, seek and you'll find, knock and it will be open to you. We had some conversation about like whether these are like parallel, like whether they're intended to be synonyms or whether they're intended to be like climactic, building, or adding to the concept. How do you guys end up landing on that after our conversation and communicators and stuff?
Yeah, so yesterday I still think I would land in the way that I was putting it at first yesterday, is that it's more of a climactic. It's building on. So like the asking is just like a one-time single request, and seeking, you're constantly doing it, being more persistent, and knocking is like even more of like the
I need this thing done.
Yes. Yeah.
That plays because one of the things I found yesterday about knock, the word can carry the picture of someone knocking on the door with a stick. Like, and I said,
So they're trying to beat it down.
Yeah. So that would kind of talk to your maybe somebody didn't hear him the first time, but now they're putting some extra volume on the And I pictured Scrooge McDuck with his walking stick yesterday.
Rap-a-tap-tap.
Yes.
How did you land on it yesterday, Nathan?
I think they're communicating 3 different facets. I'm not sure how much it's like climactic, but I'm not opposed to it. I mean, either way, like definitely seek involves like a higher level of intentionality and persistence than ask. It's like if I'm seeking something, like it's not just like a quick like, hey, would you grab that? But it's like I'm gonna look around the house or whatever, and knock involves some like motion to it, and like even some discomfort probably of like I'm gonna have to bug my neighbor or whatever because I need a cup of sugar. So I think I would probably say like it does have some build to it.
Yeah, one of the commentators I read yesterday said Jesus instructs his disciples to present their request, seek answers, and persistently ask God to enter into the presence of God.
Yeah. So they're kind of talking about 3 parts of the same move in that part. Yeah, that where it feels like we're landing is that part of asking. You're being direct and talking against that part of us that tends to stop asking and relying on God who knows what we need.
Yeah.
And so why do I ask? He knows what I need. I'm tired of bothering with him. And seeking is that more action oriented thing about to seek it, to be sincere and genuine. But when you hear the word seek, you hear, I anyway, think of kids playing hide and seek and how like, well, I think you said there's some emotion behind it, that people are, you see a kid playing hide and seek, and when they're not playing. They are
They're coming after you.
Yeah. You're behind the curtain and they are flinging the curtains open, trying to find people. And then, the knocking is that diligence, is keeping after it and going against that first thing I said about, I prayed for it 3 times and I haven't gotten an answer yet. So I just don't want to keep bothering him anymore.
Yeah. And I think, so adding to that feel, like each of these, so in the Greek, these words are like, they are present active imperatives. So an imperative means it's a command. Present means it's happening right now. And then active means that it's like, that it's not just happening to you. And actually this tense in the Greek, specifically like would reference that it's something that you do and you keep on doing.
There was a request in the communicator meeting today that you would read and pronounce the Greek words for ask, seek, and knock, because it's not going to get done on the Sunday.
Oh no.
Yeah. So you can look it up and practice. I just sprung it on him.
But ask is ateo. Seek is zeteo. And knock.
Creole.
What?
That almost sounded like Creole.
Creole?
Creole.
I don't know. It's
Way to go, man.
Krouo. What?
You nailed it.
You
Way
did
to
so
go.
good.
Thanks.
Hey, Parker, you can delete the computer voices.
Yeah.
And just let Nathan do that. I was curious as to how these 3 different things were presented throughout the Bible. And so even ask and it will be given to you. If this was a one-time thing, I could see people walking away and thinking, well, it's not that imperative because we just hear it once. But Jesus said the same thing in Matthew 21. So later in the book of Matthew, when he curses the fig tree, and later on in that passage, he says almost exactly the same thing. Faith as small as a mustard seed, and ask and it will be given to you. And then in John 14 and 15, John writes that Jesus said the same thing that we ask, and it'll be given. And I did the same thing. Seek is cool because I was thinking, seek and you will find. And how many people, when we come to the New Testament, we think that the Old Testament, that God in the Old Testament was angry, violent, didn't really like people, maybe. And yet, so Jesus is a completely different God in the New Testament, is what so many people think. So seek and you'll find. Surely there's nothing like that in the Old Testament. And yet, 1 Chronicles 28, David telling Solomon, as he's given him his last instruction, he tells his son, if you seek him, he will be found by you. 2 Chronicles 15, Azariah, son of Oded, went out to meet King Asa and said the same thing. Hear me, Asa and all Judah and Benjamin. The Lord's with you while you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. Same thing. Proverbs 8:17. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. Isaiah 55, Jeremiah 29. All places where if we seek with our heart, with our whole heart, we're going to find him.
Yeah, I was doing a quick little like check in the Greek, and this ask and it will be given to you. The particular like way that's used here is in that like the ask and keep asking. This is the only time it occurs that in that form.
In the
there's
tense.
all kinds of times that like that ask is used in the New Testament, but this is the only time that it's that ask and keep asking.
That continual action part of praying.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
Very cool.
That is interesting. So like that ask again, keep asking. That's good.
Yeah.
Very cool. But yeah, so continual action being the highlight for what we're talking about in the Greek with the tenses of these three verbs.
Yeah.
Of having it be something. And this it pierced me a little bit yesterday and today, because I'm one of those people who ask once and stop asking because I don't want to be burdened. I still have old father wound stuff where I'm like, I'm going to be a burden on him. He's not interested in hearing again. There's still those whispers that still rattle in the back of my head. And so hearing Jesus here again saying, no, is this continual thing. I want to hear from you. So go, speak, pray.
Yeah.
Which does kind of make us different. Sorry, while you're talking about this, it kind of does make it different. Like our Heavenly Father, how much different he is than us. Because if my kids ask me the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, I get a little annoyed.
Oh, yeah.
So like,
especially when the answer is the same over and over and over. And over.
Right. Yeah. Like, no.
And that's because God is infinitely more patient than us, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's so good and he cares. And sometimes, like, he does respond with a no, but it's because he knows that his way is better and he wants to give us good gifts.
Yeah. And we did have a fun conversation about verse 8. So English translators, to help us read it a little more smoothly, to help us grab a hold of the sentences, sometimes they'll add some words to the sentence to just help us along the way. And yet, for everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. You found out that wasn't exactly how it was written.
Yeah, it's just like so for everyone who asks receives, the everyone is there, but the one who seeks, so the one who is not there. It's more like for everyone who asks receives, and seeks finds, and knocks will be opened. So it's like, and to me that one of the questions I had anytime we see it, like reading this, it just felt very redundant to me. Verse 8. So my question is always going to be like, what's the unique contribution of verse 8? Like Jesus isn't wasting words here. He didn't forget his spot in his speech and like have to repeat it while he figured out what he was going to say next. So what is he adding here? And like, as we talked about it, I don't know where you guys landed. I ended up feeling pretty good about saying that like what's in focus here is actually that word everyone. Everyone who asks receives. And I think that might even be why the translators saw fit to go ahead and insert, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who, because the focus is on like what kind of person has the ability to come before the Father and ask like persistently in an ongoing kind of way? Like anyone, everyone.
Yeah.
We talked about like there's, this is still within the context of like kingdom people, citizens of the kingdom. It's implied here that like, that God is their Father. So we're not talking about just like all people indiscriminately. We're talking about specifically believers, but like not only the upper class of believers, not only the particularly holy believers, but anyone who calls Jesus like Lord, anyone who calls God their Father, is able to go and ask and keep asking and seek and keep seeking and knock and keep knocking.
Yeah. Yesterday after exegesis, I got to ask Nathan some questions about this because, so whenever we were discussing it, I read it another way as like everyone who asks receives. And so like taking it to a part of like everyone who asks to be like a follower of Jesus, who is rooted in Jesus himself. And so like no one comes to the Father except through me, John 14:6. So just thinking of that as well. And so this verse particularly is not exactly talking about that, but it's just kind of neat whenever we're talking about like how some things can be true and also, so it's a biblical principle, but it's not necessarily in this spot.
Yeah. One of the things that like one of my professors said is like right principle, wrong verse. And like, I think that's helpful. It's like, and it's not wrong. Like that's not wrong. It's not sinful to say like, oh, this is true. The problem is that like, if we're not careful, then it's only a matter of time before we will bring a principle that's a wrong principle, wrong verse situation. So anyway, but yeah, I think a great example of what you were saying, Stephanie, would be like Romans 10:13, whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Like that's a promise that like God doesn't turn anybody away who comes to him for salvation. Yeah. Even though that's not, particularly what this.
Right. I just think it's important to point out like things like that where we may be reading a verse in a scripture and we are reminded of other verses in scripture to help us point to just biblical truths.
Yep.
Awesome. What's next?
I think it's so interesting in this, like, so a cursory reading or like a common way of reading this would just be like, it would set up an expectation that like, well, I asked God for that Maserati and he says, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you. I ask him and I've asked him every day and I've like actually gone to the dealership and like talked to them about it. Like, I feel like I'm asking, seeking and knocking. And so God's promise here is that I'm going to get it, right?
Yeah. One of the notes that I had in here said like prayer in scripture is not about using God to fulfill our desires or seek personal success. Instead, it is an opportunity to engage with a loving and generous Father who delights in hearing and responding to the prayers of his people. So it's not necessarily used for a prosperity gospel. It's used to give us good gifts from him that's like from the kingdom.
Yeah. And I think something that would like kind of tailor our expectations of this verse again is like looking at it in the context of the Sermon on the Mount. Like what kinds of things has he been talking about valuing and asking for? It's like, so if we look at, back Matthew 6:8, do not be like them, the Gentiles who just babble on and on and on trying to get the Father's attention because your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Whenever you look at seek, I think immediately of seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. So like we should have those kinds of phrases in mind of like, okay, what is Jesus talking about that we can ask? Is it like ask whatever you want and it's going to be given to you? Take it to the bank. Or is there something a little bit more specific that he has in mind?
So you just mentioned before we talked about this particular thing, wrong principle, wrong verse. And so that would be someone who is, we believe, someone who would claim the prosperity gospel. Yeah. It would be doing that. Yeah. This is what it's at. It's right there in black and white, Nathan. Ask and it'll be given to you. Seek and you'll find. Knock and it'll be open to you. Yeah. Everyone who asks receives. So why are you telling me that everyone who asks doesn't receive? Yeah. Well, this is on my heart. This is what I believe God's told me I'm going to get that Maserati. Yeah. So how do we answer that?
I think how you just put it though, Nathan, of like looking at the whole Sermon on the Mount as a whole, like Jesus isn't pausing during this whole teaching to like walk away and come back later, and they're like missing parts. Like this was a sermon that he had them, he sat and told the whole thing at one time. It wasn't given to him pieces by pieces for them to pull it apart and make it to what they wanted it to be.
Say that last part again.
Pulled it apart to make it what they wanted it to be.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be pulled apart.
Yeah.
To make it what they wanted it to be.
Verse 9.
Yep, do it.
So I just liked this part right here, or which one of you. So he's like pulling the audience back into it. I was taking it that way when he says, which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone, or if they ask for a fish, will give him a serpent. Just kind of like putting it back towards the audience of like getting them to kind of think about this, and then doing some more research on this. Like back then, like first, these are two basic necessities that they used here at this time to survive. So you have a good carb and a protein. And then the bread could have looked like a stone. And then the fish, a cooked fish, could look like a serpent or a snake. And so we had some really good discussion about, well, would them eating a snake necessarily be a bad thing? And Parker pointed out, like, yeah, it wouldn't be kosher, so they wouldn't be able to eat that either.
Yeah, so it's like it would be a really cruel, mean trick for your kid comes to you, says, "Dad, I'm hungry." Sorry, I'll have to tell us a story about Olive here in just a second. Your kid comes to you and says, "Dad, I'm hungry," and you're like, "Okay, here you go," and you hand him a piece of rock that like happens to be shaped like a loaf of bread and stuff, and has that same kind of smooth outside appearance, about the same size. And it's like, how cruel is that? Like that does nothing to fix their need, and it's just mean.
Yeah.
Well, and two, I kind of keyed in on bread because that same word is used when Jesus talks about, or when Jesus feeds the multitude, and they talk about it being loaves. And there, you mentioned it that they're thinking they're getting a loaf,
right?
And I even put a picture in the exegesis thread about that had a rock by the ocean that looked just like a loaf of bread that had a bite taken out of it. And so there's even that extra feeling of, oh, this looks like bread, and I'll bring it. And here, nope.
Yeah,
that's a rock.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too. Like, I don't remember which one of you guys mentioned that. Like, that's, Satan's temptation of Jesus in the wilderness. He says, turn the rock into bread. It's like, oh, I hadn't thought about them like looking similar.
Yeah.
And that was Stephanie.
Look at
It was.
Thanks,
it was.
guys.
Got one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally remember that it was you, and you definitely did not just raise your hand and take credit for it.
He pointed towards me, so I just rose my hand to make it even more the thing. It was fine. Come on, guys.
I'm totally with you, Stephanie. Like, I think it's neat that Jesus takes and he just gives an illustration of this that like really connects with the heart of these people.
Yeah. Oh, there are no good carbs, by the way. Carbs will kill you.
Okay.
J-Gun, MD.
No.
No such thing.
No. Bachelor's political science.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would disagree because my daughter is a swimmer. And so like before she swims, I make sure she is eating some carbs and she is getting some protein.
I'm just thinking about the Office episode where Michael Scott wants to run and he just like eats a bunch of fettuccine Alfredo right before running.
Before you got a carb load.
My Olive story real quick. So Olive is what we call our 3-year-old Olivia, and she's pretty dramatic sometimes and hilarious. But the other day she just walks up to Tia, and it was like, I don't know, 6:00. So it was supper time for her. And she's just like bawling her eyes out. She's like, "Mom, you're making me sick." And Tia's like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "I'm so hungry." She definitely felt like she was dying because she had not eaten by 6:02 p.m.
Right. And she probably had not ate a snack.
Oh, I'm sure she had
or
snacks.
Anything.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But playing outside and in the dirt and stuff is hard work.
Sweat those out.
Mm-hmm.
What else you got?
I thought it was, so this was the fact that verse 9 and 10 both start with or. I thought was a little bit interesting. Like, it was kind of a weird choice, to the point where I went back and checked to see, is that actually in the Greek, or was there some reason that but it is, it's in the Greek. But D.A. Carson in his commentary pointed out that it's kind of like saying, let me illustrate this another way, or in other words, or another way to think about it.
Yeah. Some of the people hearing it would have more keyed in on this way of saying it, and others that way.
Yeah. And I think like that's just a great teacher move. Like for all you teachers out there, like you know that one of the best things a teacher can do is learn to illustrate things in multiple ways. It's like for the people who grasp things conceptually, just present the concept. But for people who need something like hard and kinetic, give an object lesson. For people who need like to latch onto a story, give them a story that they can identify with. And Jesus just is doing that here.
Yeah, it's good.
Who doesn't love good bread?
And so
Good bread. My friend Mindy makes fantastic sourdough.
Way to be, Mindy.
Oh, she's great.
yeah.
Sorry.
Mindy,
Can your friend Mindy make
You
sourdough?
can send some sourdough bread to warehouse at cornerstone.team.
Yeah.
Me and her do egg trade. I trade her eggs for sourdough.
On
Chicken
the barter
eggs.
system.
Yeah.
Chicken eggs.
Chicken eggs. What other eggs would there be? Oh.
If you then who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who's in heaven give good things to those who ask him?
I feel like we had such a good conversation about the whole evil part here. So, like, who are evil? Like, he doesn't just end it with that. He continues to go on to say, much more were your Father who is in heaven. So, like, comparably, like, to our Father who is in heaven, we are considered evil.
Yeah.
Like, we are inherently sinful and incapable of true righteousness or goodness. So I just think it's awesome that he didn't just end with saying that we are horrible, evil humans, right?
Yeah. And it wouldn't make sense for his argument. It wouldn't make sense for him to do that because he's just said like, he's given a rhetorical argument and saying like, which one of you guys? And the rhetorical answer is none of you. None of you would do this to your kid because you love your kid.
Right.
And so it wouldn't make sense for him to just say, y'all are evil.
Right.
It's like his actual point was that you guys like know how to be good dads to your kids. But in comparison to God the Father, like you're evil because he's so perfect and so good. Yeah.
Yeah. My heart kind of gravitated toward those of us who didn't, like, as the son, asked for bread and maybe got some stones from their dad, or who asked for fish and maybe got a serpent from their dad. And I might be telegraphing the end, but yeah, my heart's drawn to them. And my biggest hope for us is that we would be able to jettison those weights of what our earthly dads did, so that we can get a clearer view of the Father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think that's always like, anytime we talk about the Father, it's like all of us, we have to conceptualize God as our Father as like better than our earthly dad.
Yeah.
But like for some of us, we have to think of him as like entirely categorically different, like opposite direction of our earthly dad.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like
And
I
that's
can
tough.
look. Yeah. So for me, it's like God as Father is actually a pretty easy one for me to latch onto.
Yeah.
I had a great dad. I have a great dad. And so it's like, I can take those best qualities and recognize that my dad's not perfect, but I can extend his best qualities and say like, God is those and even better. Versus, people who had an absentee or like not good experience with their dad.
That's kind of sad. Just over here in my moment. It's fine. Keep going.
What else you got?
But it just kind of shows us more of like the character of God and who he is. Like he wants to give good things to his kids, and he wants us to come to him and have conversation with him and seek him and just lay it all out there. Like he's not going to turn us away.
And so does that mean that good thing might be a Maserati?
It might be.
Yeah, it could totally be
They're too
that.
small, man. Too small.
I think of, The Maserati came to mind because of I drive my Maserati goes 185.
Oh, wow.
What
I
is
lost
that?
my license. Now I don't drive.
Yes.
Life's been good. The guy from
Yeah.
Eagles.
Yep. If you remember the guy from the Eagles name before Nathan looks it up, that we're just totally blanking on.
Joe Walsh.
Oh,
You were going to do it.
They could have paused it and emailed us before I gave the answer.
yeah.
That's the only way that works.
Honor system. If you
Okay.
knew it. Rob.
Let us know.
Yeah. Life in the fast lane.
Surely make you lose your mind.
Okay. You guys are doing so good.
You got the next
With Hotel California.
different song?
Yeah.
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 Stephanie
So was
just-
Life in the Fast Lane.
What did you say?
Life's been good.
And I went life in the
Yeah.
fast lane. So Stephanie, now what's another Eagles related song?
I can't.
Desperado.
Oh,
There
that
you
one.
go.
That's a good
Why
one.
don't
Now,
you-
I
Parker.
can't sing
I
those.
really like the Eagles, guys.
So,
Or make his singing Desperado sound like Stephanie.
can you do that?
Nailed it, Stephanie.
Voice
Good job.
changer.
Thank you.
You guys have anything else to close out?
I just think like, what do you? We didn't really talk about this yesterday, and I'm going to complete a sentence here in just a second.
Oh, I love it.
Verse 11. So if you then who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? And I wonder, like, we didn't really talk a lot about that. How much more? Like, what is that more talking about? Because the implication of this verse 9 and 10 is that, like, anytime your kid, asks for bread, like, you're going to give them what they ask for.
Mm-hmm.
And so is it like, what's the how much more referring to? And I want, like, one thing that I've latched onto from this, and I'm just testing whether it works or not, is it like God not only gives us the thing we ask for, but like if it's not what's best for us, he knows what's actually best for us.
Ooh.
And so he hears every time, he answers every time, and always gives us what is absolutely best for us.
Mhm.
Never like settles for second best, never gives us
Yeah.
bread whenever what we actually needed was some protein. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a fair extension of that. I do think it's biblically like very true. Like whenever we think about every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father, who does not change, like shifting shadows. Whenever we think about Romans 8 of like all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose.
Yeah.
Like we know that even the crappy things of our life are good gifts from our Father because of what they do in us to make us like Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's what allows us to like count our trials as joy, like James would say.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I just saw this now. He doesn't say, if you who are evil know how to give good gifts, how much more will your Father give good gifts?
Mm-hmm.
It says good things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like vocabulary wise, it's not a huge shift. Good gifts to good or good things, but therein, there is a difference that the good things he gives us aren't always the gifts we ask for.
Oh, yeah.
Ouch.
And I read like a scholarly like journal article on this, and the guy was making a case for the fact that like it's not just implying that God is going to give us exactly what we ask for, but we know that whenever we ask him for things, that he's always going to give us good.
Good. Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting point, and I think like totally flies in the face of the prosperity gospel and helps me make sense of this ask, seek, and knock up top. Also, like just thematically, it seems to be like this is Jesus' point. This is where he's trying to land. Like, why would we ask, seek, and knock? Because we believe that God is a Father who gives good things to those who ask him.
Mm-hmm. And if you think about, I'm thinking me personally, so like the things that I've asked God for, that he didn't answer those things, and just how much more he blessed me in things that I wasn't prepared for or even asking for, but he like closed the door to one thing to give me something better that I didn't even know was a possibility. But because he loves us, because he's good, he delights in giving us those things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, I could keep going on this part, but it's good. And man,
I think also this gives it like knowing that God always answers, that he always gives us what's best, allows me to go with confidence because like, honestly, like I don't always know what's best for my life. And so sometimes I'm like hesitant to ask because I'm afraid that I'm going to ask for the wrong thing. And so to believe that God like can interpret that and like is never going to give me something that's less than what's best for me. And if that Maserati is not what's best, he's not going to give it to me.
Yeah.
And I can trust that. And then I can ask for things even when I don't know for sure. Yeah.
I said yesterday very openly that I get scared personally sometimes to ask God for things because I'm scared I'm going to have to be obedient in the thing that he's telling me to do. Like, regardless of what it may be of my marriage or my kids or something like that, to ask God, like, okay, God, where are you leading me? Am I supposed to even start like a new group or whatever? And if he was like to say, yeah, Stephanie, this is the thing that I want you to be doing. And then knowing I have to be obedient and starting that new thing. And I'm like, oh, but how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
It's like still trusting in the fact that he's faithful and he's asking you to take big steps because he's good.
And he gives good.
Yeah. And just thinking back to the things that I wasn't ready to be obedient in and the blessings that have came out of the friendships and the things. He's just good. Sorry.
Man.
Okay.
And then
Lots of things.
one more thing, and then I'm done. You're ready to be done.
Absolutely not. Not if you got one more thing.
Well, I'm just like, again, thinking through how overwhelming the Sermon on the Mount can feel with like everything being like amped up. So it's like for people who walked in thinking like, okay, I think I'm doing like what honors God. Like I haven't committed adultery. I haven't murdered anybody. And
Right.
Jesus saying like, no, you have in your heart. You have murdered in your heart. You're not doing a good job managing your conflict. You should have like left your gift at the altar. You should have gone to the person. You should have taken the log out of your own eye and before you dealt with the speck in theirs. You shouldn't have gotten that divorce. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh
You
my
just
goodness.
sounded the horn when you gave.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just like really heightens awareness of like our imperfections.
Mm-hmm.
And then for in that context, for him to be saying, for me to be thinking, how in the world, like my righteousness has to exceed that of the scribes and Pharisees, or I'm not a part of the kingdom. That's what he said on the front end. How in the world can I be part of the kingdom then? And for him to say, you're right, it's impossible. But ask and it's going to be given to you. Seek and you'll find. Knock and it will be open to you because your Father delights in giving good gifts.
Man,
It's
oh,
like
man.
if what's really genuinely best for us, what lasts is not the Maserati, it's not the bread, but it's like the Christ-like character. Then we can confidently ask that God produces that, even when we don't see like how in the world we could possibly step into it.
This is like not anything. It kind of deals with this, but I had a conversation with a friend this week. So kind of just wanting to place this out here, but just how important prayer is and conversation with God and to just get to know his character more. She was talking about how everything always comes before her conversation with the Lord, like doing the dishes, watching her kids, doing this or doing that. And she's like, worrying. Yeah. But all of these things come before having a conversation with the Lord. And she said, how sad is it going to be whenever I'm standing in front of him and I'm like, oh, sorry, God, I just didn't make time for you because I had to wash the dishes. Like, man, that's heavy because like if we truly see him for who he is and how much he loves us, he wants us to come to him and just talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Man. So if you could boil down everything we've kind of sprinkled in about what we're excited to hear, what do you say?
I think just that like prayer we can pray consistently with confidence because of who we know God is.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not rooted in like how good we think our prayers are.
Right.
How righteous we think we've been this week and stuff. It's like, we trust that God's a good father. And so we go to him and ask him.
Yeah, mine is kind of similar. Mine is like, man, if Jesus had made a point to make prayer such a big point in this Sermon on the Mount that probably took him, what did we say, like 10, 15 minutes to kind of go over, to read not read it. But anyways, he brought it up 3 times, right? And if he brought something up that many times, it needs to be more of a priority in our life. And not only for it just helps us learn more about who our Father is whenever we're sitting with him.
Yeah.
Boy, that's good. Yeah, mine's changed just as we've been talking. So Jesus has spent the entire Sermon on the Mount mentioning ways that we're not where we're supposed to be in our relationships with God and each other. He's just spent time, and to your point, Nathan, that they're feeling like low, down, unworthy. And yet, in verse 11, Jesus casually mentions, how much more will your Father who's in heaven give good things to those who ask him? That down, out, guilty, shameful, and yet still Jesus offers that your Father is here, ready to listen, ready to answer with good. Man.
That's good.
Anything else?
No, I think this was just such a great conversation. Very thankful for it.
Me too.
Yeah. And we're thankful for you guys.
Yeah.
So that'll do it. We're sure thankful you're out there. Until next time, there's a Midnight Madness sale in the warehouse that Stephanie will be behind the register all night. Come on down and see us.
What?
We'll see ya.
What does that even mean?
A Midnight Mantis sale?
Madness.
Oh, that makes more sense.
He's still
Madness.
recording.
I heard
It's fine.
Mantis.
Midnight Madness.
We're done.
I am
Stephanie's
not
on the
going to
register.
see the Midnight Mantis.
That would be
It's terrifying. That's a
scary.
horror flick. I'm sure it is.
Midnight Mantis.
That means, never mind.
Stephanie McCroy is Midnight Mantis.
Don't praying mantis eat their...
Yep.
Yes, they
Okay.
do.